Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. As always, I have a fantastic and fascinating guest with me today. His name is Dr. Robert Wolf. He is a speaker, lecturer, diagnostic radiologist, and author of the multiple award-winning book titled Not a Real Enemy: The True Story of a Hungarian Jewish Man's Fight for Freedom, which is a biography of his father's story of living as a Jewish man in Hungary when the Nazis and later the communists seized power. The book describes how his father, Ervin, relies on his wits and good fortune not once, but twice to escape the Nazis, and later accomplished the most daring of all escapes in the dead of a winter's night to escape communism. Not a Real Enemy is the true story of one of the most unknown chapters in the Holocaust, following the transformation of a young man as he confronts antisemitism, cruelty, kindness, despair, and hope in his journey toward freedom. Dr. Wolf, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
It is
Very
an
kind.
honor to have you. And my goodness, your story, I told you before we began recording, even just reviewing your bio and looking at the book and the back of the book, the write-up, I was getting chills. And I still do. Even when I think about it, I'm getting them now. It's just, I mean, such a story.
Yeah, well, I rewrote my dad's autobiography that they did in the 70s, and we could talk about the history of the book later if you'd like. But that was the motivation when I started reading the story. I read it about 30 years ago, didn't think much of it, but of course I was a full-time radiologist and had career and family and just life in the way. But then finally, after both my parents passed, I finally took a good look at my dad's autobiography back in 2018, and then I ran with it then because the stories were so amazing, and there's so many miracles and four escapes and cloak and dagger stories, twists and turns. And I thought, this can't sit on a computer disk. This can't sit on a computer screen. This needs to be shared. And so that's what I did. I got the zap. The disc shouted out to me like Superman's kryptonite. It sounds kind of corny, but I actually retired for a year and went back to work to do some radiology to help a friend in Michigan, and that brought me back to the book. And here we
Mhm.
are 6 years later. So
It's amazing. I think that happens a lot of times, as we get a little bit older and, either retire or later in our careers, we start thinking and we see these stories or hear these stories about our parents. I'm fortunate enough to have some stories that have been written down and, recorded, and I'm going to take that and write it into, a family history. But it's amazing when we think back as children, when we hear these stories, it's like, oh, wow, that seems like a lot. But it's not until we're adults and maybe even older adults that we realize what these people went through.
yeah, they were, my parents were Holocaust and history educators throughout their lives. I mean, second half of my life more so, I think I got a little bit burnt out of it during my lifetime. And if you had asked me about doing this project 5, 6 years ago, you'd say this guy would never be talking about the Holocaust and doing book signings and trying to prevent anti-Semitism, racism, and hate in general. This is my little corner of it. But yeah, so my mom and dad they're intelligent people. Going back to the 70s, they did the autobiography and they wrote the stories as though they'd happened the previous day. They were Holocaust educators in history, but they also were well-rounded. They were into the arts and the museums, theater, opera, travel, education, you name it. And I got a little bit of that from them, but my interests are a little different than them. I'm more into sports and different types of music than they were, but the song remains the same, so to speak, that you want to be diversified, and it's important to educate. It's important to sort of give back to society, that there's not just food, shelter, and clothing in this world. There's other things. There's the religion. There's family. There's the fact that there's the maintenance of peace and normalcy. I mean, just the way the world's been is going so crazy that my book couldn't be more relevant than it is now. It's just so germane with what's going on, and it's really sad that it has to be. But it makes me even more motivated to fight anti-Semitism, fight hate, because our slippery slope from October 7th went from here to like here. So now I'm climbing the Rocky Mountains in your neck of the woods with just a pickaxe and tennis shoes, So, but we're going to get it done. We're trying to get the books on shelves, and it's doing fairly well. And I guess I should make a few announcements before we delve into the details of the books. And one of them is, of course, the book has won 4 awards, which
Mhm.
I don't even know what to do with that. Not a Real Enemy has won 4 awards. It tells me that somebody out there that's professional authors and readers and editors know the importance and the quality of the work. I guess that's what it is, but I have not had time to absorb that, nor have I had time to absorb the fact that I've been invited to do a 2-day book signing in April next month at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., which is the pinnacle of what we do. It's so humbling and honor. I just don't even know what to do with that either, but I'm grateful for the invite. I've got a lot of friends in DC, and including my dad's 100-year-old friend, Sid Gersh. Hopefully he's staying with his daughter there in the DC area, and hopefully they come say hi. And I just spent half the weekend with another one of my dad's friends, his earliest friend from Detroit, Milt Simmons, who's 94, and he's a retired family practitioner, and my dad's first friend when he moved to Detroit back in 1962, the year I was born. So a lot going on there. Also, I want to tell the readers and people that are interested in the book that 10% of my author proceeds are being donated to the Holocaust Museum in DC, and that's ongoing. That's in my trust. I've got kids and grandkids that support the book. 2 have already been to the museum and sent pictures of them holding the book and told the staff about me and the whole thing. And that was so exciting. That kind of thing really makes your month, makes your year. When the
Hmm.
kids and grandkids are going to keep the thing rolling for you, that's what's really important, because that's what I want to do, is have the book end up in the classroom. So now the staff will actually meet me, which is a really cool thing. And then I've been invited that same week to do a talk. It's a live virtual international talk sponsored by the ISGAP, which is the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. And they're out of Oxford, England. They've invited me to their annual meeting in the fall, which I'm still pondering to attend and meet some of these really fine people, these experts in the field, which I'm not. I'm the expert in my little corner of it, but I can
Hmm.
still learn from them. And that book talk is sponsored by a lady from New Delhi, who she also has a Colorado connection too, by the way. She's her accolades are amazing, but I've networked with her through LinkedIn, and she arranged this talk with the ISGAP too. So a really big month coming up, and I hope more of the same. I do a lot of book talks down here, podcasts with people like you, 17 TV interviews. This is like my 34th podcast. I've done 30 book talks and presentations, and my first one was the Illinois Holocaust Museum, an education center. We did a talk, a fireside chat, a Q&A, and a book signing. It was so well received. We closed the place. The thing went so well, and that was an amazing night too. The next week, I did a hometown book talk in my Mount Clemens, Michigan. I was born in Detroit, raised in suburbia, and that sold out. We sold out all the books. We sold out the place. It was so heartwarming. And I've been to other places like Arizona, did a Greek Orthodox church talk, which was unbelievable.
Wow.
Those are the big ones. And then a high school kid from that talk read the book and wrote a review and gave me the feedback through email. And that's where it gets you. So they say you can be too young or too old to learn about the Holocaust. I disagree. I think
Hmm.
before 7th, 8th grade, 6th grade, maybe not. I mean, we bullied each other as kids. We did the same thing. Blacks, whites, Jews, Asians, we're just kids. That's what we did.
Hmm.
Trash talk, I guess you would call it, on the sports field or whatever, but we left it on the sports field. It wasn't like now with people attacking people
Hmm.
and burning things and graffiti. It's destructive. It's destructive towards society, and it's hard to understand. I mean, to me. So, and that's why I keep doing. I get up every day and say, what am I going to do to try to help fight this? And
Hmm.
here we are.
Well, I really respect that, because a lot of other people will just sit back and just throw up their hands and say, "Oh, what a world, what a world." But a couple of things I did want to mention: the fact that you're very humble when you say that the book's doing pretty well. I mean, okay, 4 awards, and tell us when the book was released.
The book was released last fall, October of 2022. So it's been out for about a year and change. The rollout is tough because the rollout is like it's just dead space. There's nobody really knows about the book until you,
Mhm,
but I've been marketing the book for a year or two up to the time that we released it. But
mhm,
so it's been a while, and they say the 18 months is the magical number for marketing and the book being, but to me, things are starting to pick up a little bit now. So,
mhm,
or maybe a lot. And so I'm not giving up after 18 months. It's hard. When Shaquille O'Neal or Bill Clinton write their autobiography, they're lined up out the door to edit it and write it and do it for them because everybody knows they're going to sell a lot of books. But when it's me, and little Ervin Wolf, and nobody knows us, then it's harder. It's harder to convince people that they should read the story. And like I said, I do want the story taught in the classroom.
mhm,
Some people are teaching about the Holocaust in prisons, like in Israel, classrooms, churches, synagogues. How about hate crime perpetrators that are caught? I think this book should be part of a curriculum. It could be a good summer reading book. I still haven't queried history professors around the country and
Mhm.
people that do Shiva studies and Holocaust studies. There are certain courses and curriculum that includes that, and eventually, hopefully, the book is taught at some of those places.
Mhm.
My alma mater, Tufts, the book is on sale at the bookstore there, I'm proud to say. Sal Gittleman just purchased the book he's a well-known guy. He's a retired Tufts professor, great guy. And he bought a copy for the Tufts library too. So I would love to do a talk at Tufts University because they've had their issues, Harvard, Penn, Stanford, UCal, Berkeley, Columbia. It was good to hear that they were arresting people for that were perpetrators and firing certain deans and professors that were,
Mhm.
I think, largely inappropriate and added fuel to the fire when it should have been just the opposite. And it's sad.
Mhm. Okay, I'm still going to circle back about your humility because it really is
Okay.
pretty impressive. The amount of success that the book has had, as somebody who has written books, and I know the process. Your book has done so incredibly well, not only just with the awards and all the attention that it's getting, and you got some incredible reviews on Amazon. So, I mean, you're really making incredible progress in a relatively short period of time in author world.
I agree. And book sales, when I first started out, I never thought we'd go this far with the book. I started out with another gentleman who was teaching me about platforms and social media and Twitter and websites and things words that book coaches. I mean, all this stuff that I had no idea. Book coach I thought was the referee without the uniform, somebody on the sidelines. And platform, I always think of platform diving or that kind of thing because I was a swimmer. And so yeah, book sales versus book success. I mean, it's not necessarily the same thing because I
Hmm.
started out saying, well, if 1,000 people read the book, I'm happy. If 10,000 people read the book, I'm happy. If 10 million people read the book, I'm happy. And maybe we'll get to that 10 million. It may take a long time. Nobody knew who Schindler was before 20, 30
Hmm.
years ago, and Frank even. And the story took a while to get around. And believe me, I pitched people like Steven
Hmm.
Spielberg, and he's already done his share towards the Holocaust. In fact, my mom was invited, and she was participated in his Shoah movie back from the '90s. So
Hmm.
Adrian Brody, I've queried, and Natasha Lyonne, they're of Hungarian descent. Okay, Adam Sandler's next. I really would like to. He's just north of us here in Boca Raton, and he's one. I mean, I know he's known for his comedy, but he's a serious Israel. He's a Israel advocate, and I think he might be interested in the story too. But those are long shots. I mean, it's the general public that I want to get to. Mr. and Mrs. Front Porch, Jewish, Christian, otherwise. Most Muslims that I know, one of my best friends, by the way, is Muslim. And I have more Christian and Muslim and Asian friends than I do Jewish friends. And believe me, I have a lot of both. But he helped me do the talk at the Greek Orthodox Church, which he was my assistant there, which is really cool. So it was all Greek Orthodox people except for Jewish lecturer and his Muslim assistant. So that's tolerance. I mean, that's what it's all about,
Hmm.
and that's what I want to do with the book. Is just it changes the way people think about hate and because when people read about my dad's story, like I did, I put myself in his situation,
Right.
and anybody could be in that situation, whether it's your religion, a bad business deal, bad local government, a bad federal government, a bad foreign government, a bad natural disaster. Any of us could be in the same situation where you're enslaved, you're captured, you're on the
Hmm.
run, you're starving, you lose your home. And that's what the book does. It's so well written, and I got to give my co-author Janice Harper all the credit for helping me really turn this into an amazing book. It really, you feel, but you empathize with them, and you put yourself in his shoes and his family shoes when you read this, and that's what was so special about this book to me. So
Well, the other thing that really struck me was when you're talking about your kids and your grandkids, and to see them taking pictures, with them holding the book and promoting the book. What an incredible legacy you
I
have
wouldn't be
given
surprised.
them.
No, it's amazing. One of them, I never actually had kids. I'm the only child of only children. So I'm the end of the line. This is my legacy to my parents and the family.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to throw in that the punchline is my dad ended up delivering 10,000 babies in the Detroit area in a shortened 24-year career. And that's called redemption. I mean, and ironically, I wasn't crazy about OBGYN. I am a radiologist, like you said. I like that specialty better. And it's funny that I'm only child and I never had kids too, because that's what dad did for a living, but he loved
Mhm.
it. He could have worked till the day he died, and yeah, it's nice having that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jen, my oldest stepdaughter, she's in Virginia Beach, which is not right around the corner from DC. I wouldn't be surprised if she stopped by and said hi, just knowing her, because that's how she is. it's actually her birthday that week too. So they're great kids, and it's so
Mhm.
pleasing to see that. And it extends to, yeah, when I'm gone, and posthumously, maybe the book will sell more copies over time, and maybe it'll be a movie, which a lot of people say it should be.
Mhm.
Um, and I hope that they support it, and they'll get the benefits from it, and I hope they use it to keep the word going about fighting hate. So we'll see what happens. But one person at a time, one classroom at a time,
Mhm.
one podcast at a time, whatever it takes.
Well, let's go back and talk about your dad, because he was born into affluence. He had an affluent family, and what happened? Because I don't want to be, give it away, but war breaks out. The Nazis invade, and what happens then?
Well, even before then, so my dad's father, um, they were in and out of affluence. They weren't always doing well. They had to move from time to time between World War One and World War Two. They didn't know if they wanted to be. They were patriotic to Hungary, but they lived part of their lives in Romania. The borders changed so much. Transylvania, Hungary, Czechoslovakia. As you know, you're from the Czech Republic now. I
Mhm.
call it anatomy. It's geography. It changed so much. You needed a scorecard to keep track of it. But in the 20s, even when my dad was born in the 20s as a spoiled kid, they talked about Horthy, who was a World War One hero, but he wasn't really favorable to the Jews. They talked about the Red Terror and the White Terror, and for the Jewish people, nobody was ever friendly to them. They felt that no matter who was in charge, no matter who was running things, they were always at risk. And so his dad and mom, my dad's parents, they moved from time to time. Finally, with the help of a cousin, established a successful dental practice, and still was worried about, how far I would go. In between, he had a government job that he was fired from because he was Jewish. My dad was kicked out of high school for a while because he was Jewish, kicked off the swim team because he was Jewish, and finally got into medical school after the war. So now we'll get into the war. So when the war first happened in 1939, when they attacked Poland, as you know, a lot of the Polish refugees came to Hungary. There's a little bit about that in the book too. Very sad what happened to them, that they did this land for deal business and traded the people back, and it ended badly for just about all of them, as you know. And then Hungary really didn't get. 42 was a really, really bad year for excessive. I mean, every year, every day was bad because people were being killed left and right. Soldiers, Hungarians, Jews, Christians, otherwise. But 43, 44 is when it really hit the Hungarians harder. Somebody pointed out recently is whenever the war was going badly for the Nazis, that they started slaughtering more and more and more Jews. They accelerated it, and that was so. For the Hungarians, it was 43, 44. My dad was hauled off in 43, in October 43, to a forced labor camp, which he spent months in essential isolation, multiple places that they marched to, living in stables, food poisoning, foot infections, just peasants that are helping at their own risk. Great stories, miracles, until my dad finally escaped in 44. And when he did, and then he had two escapes actually, because he got corralled into a dog pound, as he called it, with his friend Frank. So yeah, somebody was giving him a ride that they trusted, and they ended up in a dog pound. So they end up in another. They were imprisoned again in downtown Budapest, across from the Nazi headquarters, and they
Oh,
escaped from there. And that escape is just as miraculous as the first one. The first one's really exciting because you're out in the middle of nowhere, you don't know where you're going, and you don't know where you're going to end up, getting eaten by wolves or bears, and who knows when you get to get your next meal. And they talk about the light at the end of the tunnel. There's no light at the end of this tunnel. You're just running, and you don't know where you're going to end up. Body lice they had more than once. I mean, it just horrible things that, besides just being beaten, urinated on, people drinking and threatening to shoot 1 out of 10 of the prisoners because somebody talked out loud or coughed out loud and made a noise, and if they wouldn't admit that it was them, they threatened to kill like every 10th man. And
oh,
you can see my dad, he's talking about counting by finger who they started with. The guy actually didn't go through with it, and I shouldn't spoil it, but think about that kind of mental torture, that you could be dead in just a matter of seconds because
I
some guys had too much to drink and he's in a bad mood. So my dad's so this is different than some of the other Holocaust stories, because my dad was stuck in forced labor camp, and a big chunk of the book is about his time in the forced labor camp, marching all over the country, digging railroads and airports, cleaning out landmines, placing landmines,
mm,
and the Jews were felt unworthy to have weapons. So they had these stupid yellow armbands, like the stupid, I call it the ridiculous yellow stars. and these caps that they had to signify them. And they were unarmed. So Russian planes would occasionally come by and shoot at the men, even the paramilitary. They were unarmed and they were still just shooting at them. So, and there's a couple of victims in that story too. That's really sad stories about that part too. Fortunately, my dad survived all that. And then finally, months after my dad got back to his hometown, and it took he went back to his old house. Of course, it was occupied by a Christian family. None of his belongings were there. He had to hire a policeman to go in and see if anything was there, but there was just about, the cupboards were bare as far as his own family possessions. They had a few hiding places around town that my dad had to recall by memory, where he could go to get maybe a little bit of money and a little bit of protection or advice. And so that was hard. And then it was no man's land kind of for a while, because months before he found out what happened to his parents, and he got eyewitness testimony from somebody that he miraculously ran into in his hometown. And if he hadn't met this lady, he probably never would have found out what actually happened to his parents. So, and then finally, my dad got to go to medical school because there's a quota of up to 10% of the medical students could be Jewish, which is kind of ridiculous, but I'll take better than nothing. My dad qualified, and finally he got to go to medical school after all those years. He used to say he lost 10 years of his life, and literally he did, because between being forced labor and not being able to work because he was Jewish and having to do these other side jobs, and finally got into medical school and went from there. But unfortunately, they were under communist Hungary, who didn't treat the Jews much better, apart from, corralling them into ghettos and the trains and hauling them off to have them murdered. Not much better. Jewish weddings were illegal. My parents actually had an illegal Jewish wedding. There's a whole chapter devoted to that, and that's really sad with the communists. We're talking more torture, imprisonment, and the like. And finally, and then my parents also had people that were traitors, that were medical students and residents and faculty, who tried to convert them to the way of thinking, to the communist. They're trying to make them communist sympathizers. My parents wouldn't buy into it, so they kept their mouths shut. They kept quiet politically. They knew the place was probably bugged. The phones were bugged. Everybody's watching your every move, and many cloak and dagger stories. Dad's third escape, he ends up arguing with an armed Russian soldier, and there it is. So decides to turn back. He gets away, but he was nervous, fear of reprisal, getting arrested, and he turns back as a medical student and goes back, and he was on call the next night, and nobody even knew he was gone. And so it's just unbelievable. And finally, they had enough. After the Hungarian Revolution in '56, they were frontliners. Dad was already an OB/GYN by now, but he was doing trauma surgery. 3,000 people died in that war. A lot of young kids, a lot of young people, college students, a lot of refugees, a lot of homeless, a lot of injured. But my dad, for 2 weeks straight, was working 24/7, doing his OB/GYN duties, and then doubling down as a trauma surgeon. And mom ran the blood bank. She was a med student at this point now. That's how they met. They met when she was really young, but this is where they met, where the romance took off and they got married. So she ran the blood bank. So they were the frontliners in the Hungarian Revolution, 2.5 weeks and done. No American intervention, which I've talked about from time to time. It's kind of like Ukraine now, very similar, although Ukraine seems endless, unfortunately. And they just had enough. So they escaped. As another harrowing story, they encountered anti-Semitism till the very last minute, until they actually got to Vienna, and finally that started to go away. I mean, the people that helped rescue them, apart from a priest, which is another great story, they were still saying anti-Semitic remarks. And believe me, my mom and dad wanted to bark up and say, "Listen, man," as we say down here in Florida, "Listen," and they couldn't do it because it would imperil their escape. So finally they got out, and that's kind of where the book ends. But we may do a part 2 that takes them from Vienna all the way to the U.S. And it was not easy. It was easier than Europe, but it wasn't easy for foreign, non-English speaking people to redo his residency, learn the language, find a place to work, and find people, like I said, like Milt, who are even interested enough to hear your story. And believe me, by the time my parents died, everybody wanted to hear their story. Everybody loved them. We're going to circle back to my dad delivering 10,000 babies, because you'd never know that he'd gone through what he'd gone through with everything that he had. He was so jovial and jolly, loved his work, would have worked till the day he died. He loved doing surgery too. And he'd walk into the hospital and everybody beaming, the secretaries, he'd say hi to the janitors, the nurses, the other doctors. And I love going on rounds with him just to see that. And it was a role model. It was very inspirational to me, seeing my mom and dad and their love of medicine. My mom had to leave medical school 13 months before graduation for their escape in '56. She never got to go back. because they ended up in Boston where my dad redid his residency, and she had to work doing research to help. They needed to pay for rent, and it wasn't easy. So, but they got it. They got through it, and that's inspiring enough. I mean, just never mind 2 wars, 4 escapes, going
Jeez.
to your residency twice, and delivering all those babies and smiling all the way through it, and no sign of PTSD, at least in my
Right.
dad. My mom a little bit, but she fought it off by educating people, and
Mhm.
she would go to lectures, she would do lectures. They were very active in the medical community. They were active in the Jewish community. A lot of friends, and like I said, from India, Africa, Asia, all over the world. They loved it, Eastern European and otherwise, Greek.
Mhm.
They love to hear everybody's story. They love to share their
Mhm.
story, and I guess that's what I'm trying to do. I
Mhm.
guess I'm my dad's messenger. Somebody called me recently,
Mhm.
so I guess that's what I am,
Well, and
unbeknownst to
I
me.
always say that, through sharing our stories and telling our stories, I think it's going to make the world a better place because once we hear each other's stories, we realize that we have a lot more in common than we think or that we are told by society and media trying to separate everybody into certain little, um, subsets or whatever. But I want to go back to your dad because as I was doing the show notes, I was looking and, like I said, I told you I did a deep dive into all your social media and everything. And the picture of your dad holding a baby, I mean, you can just see it. And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you actually was, you see him and he just looks so happy, so vibrant, and so full of joy. It just, you can see it through the photo. And I was going to ask you about PTSD because of all the trauma that he went through and you can just see it. He was just so happy to be
He
alive and to be holding that newborn baby. It's a great picture.
Everybody asks if that's me. No, it's not me. In fact, my dad, one of his partners, one of the people he was working with, wouldn't let my dad take the night off. He wouldn't change call the night I was born. So my dad wasn't didn't get to see my birth. Unfortunately, he was working himself. Thanks a lot. Medicine. I don't want to insult doctors, but I've had that experience. I've been in radiology 35 years, so from time to time, I've had experience where people were, what's the word, tight about trading. I guess
Hmm.
So, um,
Yeah. Well, I
but you're right.
actually, I've been in medicine for 40 years. So I've actually had two medical careers. I was a respiratory therapist for almost 20 years and then a
That's
physical
amazing.
therapist. So
Well, thank you for your service, by the way, because we don't, we thank the police and the military, but we need to thank healthcare professionals, especially after
thank
COVID and
you.
everything.
Thank you.
No, I
No
mean
one has
that. And
ever said that to me.
I had a SWAT guy, I had a SWAT guard present at one of my synagogue lectures, and I thanked him for his service. I never met this kid in my life. And I said, I mean, it's great. He's protecting me. And it's amazing that they had two people protecting the place. So maybe they need six. I don't know. Because in Israel, when I was in Israel, I'll get back to my dad in a minute. I was with my parents in Israel 3 times in my lifetime. And everybody should go to Israel. They always say every Jew should go to Israel, every Jewish person. I think everybody should go to Israel. Not now with the war going on, but I never felt safer there. True, and even if I were there now in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, I would feel pretty safe. Short of Iran getting full fledged into this war, I don't. I'm not really. I hope that never happens. But
Mm.
short of that, I mean, I can't see. Israel should survive. But my parents took me there. The Wailing Wall. It was very emotional when I was there the last time. Um, a little sidetracked to 1956 when my parents escaped to Vienna. They met my mom's stepfather. My mom's parents had already been divorced. They got a divorce literally to save the family, to save for the family's survival, and ended up in 2 different parts of the world outside of
Oh.
Hungary. So her mom went to Israel with the stepfather, and they met him in Vienna, which and they wanted them to move to Israel, and they were very disappointed that they didn't. But Israel was going through the Sinai War in 1956 at the same time. And my parents said 2 wars is enough. So uh, ironically, they get to Detroit, they get established, he gets his first real job, and then Detroit started getting a little bit rough. I mean, and my mom and dad could see that in the mid 60s. And so they got out in time before the riots and all the uprisings. So,
Mhm.
but needless to say, once dad got established, once they were well known in the community, that picture it's 1,000 words. And
Mhm.
I love sharing that picture more than once because it gets old sometimes. But some people that know that picture, and like I say, that's just a heartwarming picture. And
Mhm.
I've got 14,000 photos on my phone. And believe me, I try to use all of them and try to keep a variety because you're talking about the same thing every day, trying to put a twist on it. And you know what I'm talking about. It's really hard to
Mhm.
do. So I have these silly poems sometimes and disturbing pictures and happy pictures and pictures that'll just get attention, whatever it takes. Sometimes I'm thinking about it in the middle of the night, just, oh, this is a good idea for this
Mhm.
particular I did one about us. It's got a little poem in it. And,
Mhm.
I'm no Eminem, who was raised just down the street from me, but I'm getting pretty good at it, and people like it. And the point is, it's about the book, and the point is, it's about the podcast, or whatever the subject matter would be. Please buy the book. I'm not trying to. I don't want to get too pitchy, but it is unfortunately part of the business. Is you really
Mhm.
have to query people, and you have to tell him why this book is better than any other form of entertainment that you might consider, which is hard because we've got Netflix and Hulu and regular
Mhm.
TV, sports, music, all kinds of stuff. That other books, which are amazing, other Holocaust books, which are amazing. There's so much competition in the entertainment industry, so you have to tell people, and that's where a movie would come in. If this from anybody's mouths to God's ears, whoever mentions that, if it ever became a movie, then it would double back to the book, I would think.
Mhm.
And I think it will be someday. Maybe not my lifetime, like I said, but that's okay. If it becomes a
Mhm.
movie, and more people learn about the story, and it changes them. That's the other thing. It will change people. So,
Mhm.
and my dad just, yeah, the PTSD part, he hit it well. He'd have fights with my mom from time to time, arguments, but couples do. He used to
Right.
clean out the refrigerator when he was exhausted and mad. He'd take everything out of the fridge and clean it out. I remember that, and start yelling and this and that. I mean, we've all done that. These little, start vacuuming, that kind of, you know how it is. And
Mhm.
and if he fought with me, he would bring up talking about forced labor camp from time to time, saying how hard it was, and how spoiled we are as Americans, and he's right. And we take for granted. We don't want to wait in line at McDonald's for more than 5, 10 minutes. We don't want to wait in line
Mhm.
at the pharmacy. We take for granted that we get in a car and go where we want and have our freedoms. And
Mhm.
so that's where my dad, mostly with arguments with me, I suppose, is how he. But in the end, no sign of it. Took me to the YMCA every Friday. Went swimming, ice cream, whatever.
Mhm.
Very loving parents, and I'm lucky that way too, because I guess
Mhm.
this is my way to repay them, because you can
Mhm.
never repay them enough when you're alive, because you end up fighting with them, and we go through teenage years, or you marry somebody that they may not like, or this and that.
Mhm.
And I didn't really have any of that. I guess I was a pretty good kid most of the time. But this is, I guess they wrote this story as though they knew I would do this.
Mhm.
And gosh darn it, they were right. Don't you hate it when your parents are right?
Right?
So,
I know.
as a therapist, you probably talk about parents half the sessions. So,
Well, I'm not a therapist. I'm a physical therapist.
no,
I
I
don't
know,
do
I know.
emotions. I always laugh and say I don't do emotions. It's like, don't like to talk about them. Don't like to even admit that I have them. I just, I'll do the physical stuff.
I
But
got you.
that that's something I did want to ask you is what do you think your parents, I mean, they're looking down at you. What do you think that their reaction would be to this book?
Okay, everybody says they're looking down on me, beaming on me, and they're proud as peacocks and happy. And my mom said, you would never do this. Why? So two things. So I got a couple of jokes. I say with my mom's accent, if you'll forgive me, she would say with a Jewish guilt, "You couldn't do this while we were still alive." That's what she would say. Or you've only won 4 awards, only 4. That's all you could do. You couldn't do better than 4 awards. I'm kidding when I say that. My mom had a little bit of a helicopter mom in her, I suppose, if that's a good or bad thing. It kept me in line though, but that was something she would say. And my dad, I think he's just smiling and he's drinking a Bloody Mary with his other late friends. But like I said, he's got friends that are still alive, well into their 90s and 100. And I don't know, maybe it's the water in Michigan that kept him going. My dad had 2 open heart surgeries, unfortunately, so he didn't quite live as long as some of his friends, but he survived all of that. And he had rheumatic fever as a kid. That was another thing. So no
Mhm.
antibiotics back in the day. So he ended up with
Right.
mitral stenosis, and then he needed a 3 vessel bypass. And so he survived all that. And then he needed that valve that punctured. So he had to have the valve done again. So
Oh,
he'd been through a lot. On top of,
yeah.
he had a spine injury when he was in the US. And I forget what else. I mean, friends, little kids that died of other diseases. His father died, they think of cholera
Mhm.
at Auschwitz. And his mother died pretty much immediately. So, and
Mhm.
the stories were vivid. They were
So,
eyewitnesses.
uh, now what year was your dad born?
1922. So mom was
Okay.
born in 1933. My dad was born in 1922. My mom was just a little kid when she was 9, 10 years old when the war broke out,
Mm.
and she ended up hiding in farms with her mom and her grandmother, and chronicled a little bit about her past. I got to see the Shoah movie again and see what she said, but she didn't put it all in writing like my dad did, because I guess my dad had so many more stories. And even though I'm sure my mom woke up scared every day, along with her mother and grandmother, at least things were quiet. If the war had gone the other way, eventually they probably would have been corralled. But thank God the war ended, and and they ended up being safe. For men, young men, they were useful, so they took them off to the forced labor camp, slave labor camp, and used them. And the irony is, it saved my dad's life. If he was just a Jew that was corralled, then he'd be dead. And they did have death marches too, by the way. They did do death marches and beatings, and people starved, like I said, and or had illness. So it wasn't. But if you survived that, you had a good chance of surviving. You would think. I mean, because you're out. It was hard. And their first escape was based on that fear that they might be, because they marched and marched and marched all over. Sometimes they had to march an hour and back in the freezing cold just to get their equipment, their tools, or dinner, or whatever. Sometimes they just ate once a day, and a lot of times it was slop or gruel. It wasn't meat and potatoes, that was for sure. So very hard times, very hard. And the way that he got through it, and that determination and that hope, the integrity that we talk about it in our speeches, it's just inspiring. I mean, it's amazing. There's not enough adjectives in the language to describe what this book does for me, or the typical reader, but it's just it's mind-boggling.
And of course, part of your mission with this book is to be able to educate people about the Holocaust. And you even have made like parallels regarding what's happening in our world today.
Big time. Yeah. I mean, well, anti-Semitism, the people say, well, who cares about what happened in World War II or pre-World War II? Who cares about what happened to the rise in hate? It's the same thing. It might be different ways of torturing each other, which is a depressing thought as it is. Mankind finds more ways to torture each other or try to bankrupt each other, or whatever the case may be. And then the communists, the same thing. We parallel it to the Ukraine war, where, I thought we were trying to slowly make headway with the Russians, with Putin and whatever. I don't know if he's demented, or if he's got this power struggle as he gets older, or wants to change the face of history. But it's a scary thought when he's threatening nuclear war. As recently as last week, if the Americans intervene anymore. And believe me, we spent a lot of time and money in this, and not just the United States. And that parallels back to the Hungarian Revolution, where I think the American government's job is to protect its own people above all. And if you start getting in a foot war or a helicopter war with or hand-to-hand combat with a foe like the Soviet Union, then you're really putting all of us at a greater risk. So it's a fine line. I wouldn't want to have to make those decisions. It's just not I don't know why humankind is setting us back hundreds and hundreds of years with these wars, and COVID set us back a few years, and on and on and on. Somebody said in social media once, humans in the last 1,000 years or 200 years have caused so much malfeasance that it's put our society back 400 years ago. Like, we should be drones, Jetsons, whatever, domes to protect us, to protect our own countries, so we won't have to worry about all this other stuff. I'm trying to think of the word, independence. Every country, and that's another lesson about Hungary. Here it is 100 years later, and they never got to trench on their own soil the way they wanted to live. It's always the Nazis or the communists, and now it's Orban, who I don't know that much about him. I hear he's so far right that he makes he makes Trump look like Bernie. What's his name? Bernie from Vermont, the president.
Sanders?
Yeah, Sanders. He's that far right. It's a joke, but
Yeah.
but I mean, anyway. But that guy, the Hungarians, they don't want that. I'm sort of a right of center guy myself, and I'm not real political, but I'd like to hear someday that the Hungarians have a leadership and a government that they're happy again, that the people can live freely, not have to worry about where their meal's coming from, or who's going to be next, or if they're going to be another Putin's. They call him Putin's puppet too, so it could be under Russian control again, especially if the Ukraine war were to be successful. That's been speculated, of course, by many, and not just Hungary, other countries in the area. So there's an addiction to it, right? Power and
of course.
acquisition of wealth and money and real estate, whatever. There's a definite addiction to it. So it's sad. I just hope I hope it ends soon, and I hope
When
the
you were
lessons from my
talking,
book.
when
Go
you're
ahead.
talking historically speaking, humanity over the years, all I could think of is that we've actually learned nothing.
Correct. Well said. And we should end it right there, because it's true. That's why I'm doing this, and that's why I appreciate you having me here, and you and many other people. Because when I reach out to you people on Podmatch, I'm glad I found Podmatch, by the way, because these interviews are getting better and better, and they're very stimulating, and I'm very appreciative of anybody who wants to listen to the stories. And really good people like you, and the physician that just interviewed me. He's a neurologist down in Tennessee, and we have a Massachusetts, Rhode Island connection. A couple guys from New York, a gentleman of successful business from Western Canada. I've done one out of New Zealand, it's great. I
John,
hope
was
it's,
it John Brink?
yes. So you know him. Yes,
I
John.
had him on my show a while back, and I am invited to be on his show. So I'm going to be doing that next
It
month.
was a pleasure. That was a great time, and he just let me ramble away like I am now. I'm a radiologist, so I talk for a living. So if you don't talk fast and you don't talk, if you don't get your work done, you don't get to go home. So and for me, I just try to get it all in the short period of time we have. So and that's the lesson too. Is life's lesson is time is our only commodity now.
Mhm.
Life is short. I'm 61, 61 and a half. If some protester comes to me when my talks and whacks me out, as they would say in The Sopranos, then at least the book's out and the story's out. And I've had my closet days of the Jewish closet days where, and I still pray from home because I figure if I go to a synagogue and it gets shut up, a dead Jew can't pray. So I pray from home, and I'm not that orthodox, but I'm conservative. I will say it the conservative side of it, and but I'm out of that now. I'm more proud of my heritage. I'm proud of what my parents did and their friends and how they survived. And I'm just trying to tell the story. And
Mhm.
so people can change. It's another lesson. I tell the kids, the residents, you can learn something from every case. Well, it's still true at my age. And there's no substitute for experience.
Mhm.
It's never too late to change your vectors. So if you're bored, accountability is another thing with hate. I mean, I always like to think of accountability. People get frustrated in their own lives and just do something different. Run for office, write a book, write a play, go
Mhm.
to the opera, go to the weight room, whatever. Change your life a little bit if you're not happy. Go back to part time.
Mhm.
Change careers. I mean, there's so many things you can do. Life's too short to just stick to one thing and be overwhelmed or be burnt out by it. So that's my advice: is if you find yourself stagnating, you don't want to be that dead fish in the water, that dead shark in the water. You got to move it along. So I've been fortunate to be able to do it. I've had a great team to help me. A lot of mistakes early on, a lot of wasted money and time early on. But as you get like, there's no substitute for experience. You get better at it, and you streamline with the right people, and hopefully that helps accelerate the book sales and the knowledge that's included with this, and hopefully the change of attitude in some cases. Or to hop on Team Ervin, let's get on Team Ervin, my dad's first name. So
I
I
love
like it.
that.
Team Ervin, right? Great. I have the book, the guy that did the guys from Croatia that did my book cover. Never had a word with them. It was all done by email and a wire, a very reasonable cost. Kind of an artsy guy, so a little bit of not to insult artists, but a little moody. It's a different business selling a book versus being a radiologist. So, and this guy
Oh,
was a
yes.
graphic designer, so you understand the time frame slows down, and same with trying to get book talks and signings. The time
Mhm.
frame slows down. As a radiologist, my turnaround time is just a couple of minutes. I can't let stuff sit for. So what if the guy's got a pneumonia or a fracture, whatever, so I can't. So, but for this, you got to be really patient. It's definitely a marathon, not a sprint. That's another lesson. If you're a Holocaust survivor, and there's a few left, I think I've been
Mhm.
told maybe 250,000
Mhm.
Holocaust survivors still around in the U.S. If you have a story, share it with the kids. It's never too late. If you're the kids or the grandkids of the Holocaust survivors and you've got some chronicles or documents, you can do a memoir, you can do poems, children's books, a biography, historical fiction. This genre has been characterized as multiple different types. I still call it a biography, but it's also an adventure. It's a history book of Hungary, and it's the trials and tribulations of my dad's parents and family and friends. So it's a multiple. You might call it a bit of historical nonfiction because we had to make up a few names that we didn't know, but most of the names and all the events occurred as meticulously as I could, and with as much fidelity as the way my dad said it.
Mhm.
If Dad said that that's what happened, that's what happened. I mean, why would he lie about it? Why would and there's so many photographs of all of this stuff too. The Nazis took more photos than anybody, and I got a bunch of them. Some are very, very disturbing that I have yet to share, but I'm waiting with the big guns until later because I think I'm still getting the message across. But some of these photos and concepts are so disturbing. When I visit the museums, I can look in the trains for a minute, but I can't step in one now.
Mhm.
It's too eerie to me. So it'll be hard enough taking the Bright Line here in Florida, but nice modern train, go get a cocktail while you're on your way to Orlando or whatever. But that being stuffed together or cold and not knowing where you're going, and they,
Terrified.
they deceived my dad's parents too. That's another thing. I mean, that this is something that doesn't come up that often. Is they deceived? They told them they were going to do gardening and botany and work, plant trees and flowers and things. That's what they tell them they were heading. That they were going to be. They had a work assignment to go help out in the country. They weren't even in their own country when they end up dying. So, can you imagine that? Thinking that you're going to a better place. They corral you in a ghetto in a small area. and they end up taking you to a death camp. It's unbelievable. So
It's
a lot of
horrible.
malfeasance.
Yeah. Well, you know what though, when you were talking about all of this, especially at the very beginning of that last sentence that you had that went on, was I
Too
had
many.
this image of, oh my goodness, I see your future. You have another career ahead of you as a book coach or a writing coach.
Well, that's kind of you to say. I wish I were a little better at writing at it, but I'm definitely good at coaching the whole process, I guess, or helping you. Everybody's path is going to be different. You know, there are different types of books and you're going to have a different team. But
I
yeah,
mean,
I mean,
you lined that out so beautifully and so meticulously, and especially giving people the idea of being able to do, put the stories into like children's books or in ways that, we can educate the younger kids without scaring the heck out of them at the same time. I mean, it was just beautiful. That was a wonderful segue. That was that
I
was
appreciate
great.
you saying that. I sometimes it's a run-on sentence because you forgot how you start the
Well, it
sentence.
was a run-on
It-
sentence, but there was a lot of really great
there's a
information
lot of
in that one
material.
sentence.
Well, there's a
Hmm.
lot to talk about, and I'm sorry about that. I mean, and like you said, things pop into your head sometimes spontaneously. So one thought brings you to another, and that thought may
Right.
not come up at the next interview. But if I can slip something in that's meaningful, then I try
Mhm.
to. That's all. That's what it is. I mean,
Well, it's very meaningful. And I have got to tell you, because I don't think I've said this yet, thank you for doing this. I mean, thank you for writing the book, sharing your story, getting the word out. I think this is one of the ways that we can, like I keep saying, make the world a better place through our stories, educating each other and listening to each other. There's just so much divisiveness right now, and there's really no need for it.
I
We're
couldn't
all
say it better
human.
myself. It's unnecessary. I agree. I mean, couldn't say it better myself. And thank you too for having people like me. You said I'm not the only Holocaust author, and like this is a unique story because it includes the communist Hungary
Mhm,
and peacetime Hungary under communism. But
mhm.
uh, I mean, they still felt no peace. So I appreciate you letting me share this, and hopefully it touches a few lives. Hopefully, a few books get sold, and maybe somebody else will network with me through LinkedIn or and I guess I should say about getting the book, if that's okay.
Oh,
I'm very,
absolutely. Okay, so what I would like for you to do is go ahead and share any links that you would like to share. All of this is going to be in the show notes, but I really like the guests to be able to articulate it because it makes it more personal. Where they can get the book, how they can follow you, your website, anything that you want to share, go for it.
okay. So the way to get the book is, so it's not a real enemy. One more time. Very proud, very pleased. I never thought we'd get this far. I mean, it's
Incredible book cover.
unbelievable. The true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. If you Google "not a real enemy," it'll come up. If you Google Robert J. Wolf, MD, I should come up. So there's that. The book is on Amazon. I post about it. I don't know, 5 days a week, 4 days a week. It used to be 7 days a week. I'm slowing down a little bit because I'm getting a little saturated myself. I have plenty of material still, but I want to change it up a little bit and keep people interested and engage with people in other topics. But I'm on Amazon. It's Barnes and Noble. You can get online. You can go to a local Barnes and Noble store. It's in their system. If they don't have it there, they can order it for you. Walmart, Tufts University, like I said, now it's available at the Tufts University bookstore. They have a little program for Tufts alum. I also went to University of Michigan. If you have any Michigan fans, go blue, and they won. Unbelievable. The basketball team not as good, but so Tufts University, fine institution, small school. It's on sale there. The United States Holocaust Museum in DC. Like again, I'll be doing a book signing there in a couple of weeks, and it'll be great to see my book on the shelves and meet a lot of people I know, people I don't know. Hopefully, more networking. It's also available at the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center, where we did we did a program, like I said, a couple of months
Mhm,
ago, and then well, that's about it. I mean, hopefully more places. The more
mhm.
I'm in talks with Houston, I'm in talks with Zeckelman in Michigan, so the book will probably be on sale at those institutions soon. If I mean, I stay with these until they say no. I'm chasing and I'm staying with it. And I don't like the word chasing, but I try to stay engaged with people
Mhm,
until they actually say no, we can't do it, we can't afford it, we don't have time. I don't ask for engagement money either. If they offer, I take it. And like I said, 10% is going to the Holocaust Museum, so I still have to sell a lot of books to break even, but
mhm,
I plan on it. I plan
mhm.
on selling hopefully a lot of books over time. So
Oh,
um,
I'm sure you will.
active on social media. So I'm Rob Wolf on Facebook, but I'm kind of saturated with friends. I'm maxed out. So you can find me as Robert, Not a Real Enemy by Robert Wolf. That's my Facebook author page. I like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably right now my best used
Mhm,
social media site. It's very professional. It's a great way to network.
mhm,
I'm on Twitter or X. Facebook is actually Meta now. I should get with the program and be modern. But so X, I'm on X too. I do a lot of, I don't do as much as I used to on X, but I do all my
mhm,
posts that I do across the board. Instagram, not so much. It's very fickle. I'm staying away
mhm,
from TikTok. I was going to
mhm.
do, what's the other one? Um, oh, there's so many places. There's so many marketplaces you can try to sell the
Mhm.
book. Um, the one that's got all the arts and crafts, or I'm
Not
trying to think.
Goodreads. Oh, Pinterest.
Pinterest, yeah, and I tried to get help with that, and then the lady was saturated. I might revisit it that because it's going to be different. But Pinterest, somebody one pointed out, Pinterest is happy stuff. It's art, and this is sort of a book about the Holocaust. It's not necessarily a
Mhm.
happy thing, but I don't know if people sell books on Pinterest or not. I'd have to look into
I
it.
don't know. I mean, I have done a lot of marketing and marketing classes, and one of my closest friends actually, knows a lot about book marketing, and Pinterest doesn't seem to be one that's up there.
No, and I think like I said, because we're connected on LinkedIn now, I think LinkedIn is my best bet.
Mhm,
Facebook and Facebook author page and Twitter in some ways. There's a lot of authors on Twitter too, but
mhm,
there's a lot of people just pitching each other back and forth, and you get all
mhm.
that and trying to get more people on board, and then you get all these the trolls and the people that want to sell you. They
Oh,
want to
yeah.
show you their cleavage, or they want to sell you the cryptocurrency or whatever.
Right.
Or you get the guy from Gambia and this and that, and yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. But so that's hard, and that takes away from your time, and we're
Mhm,
back to this time being our commodity.
mhm,
My website is robertjwolfmd.com. I have a great guy who's been with me throughout this journey, and he's been helping me with all the technology of it, including the website. Mark Cahill, he does a great job if you're looking for a guy to help you with your
mhm.
website. And he just touched it up. He's telling me we've got the videos on there, TV interviews, podcasts, reviews, history of there's a little mini videos of the Hungary during the Holocaust and the Hungarian Revolution. It's loaded. It's got plenty of material, and you can buy the book right off of there. As soon as you get on the landing page, there's links to buy the book right off of the website too. Feel free to send me an email. My email address should be available on any of these things, or you can PM me. It's once we connect, we've emailed. Of course, we email our Zooms, and in some cases, we'll meet, invite me to a book signing, a book talk, a presentation, and we'll sign the books. I don't say no to anything. I mean, short of North Korea inviting me, or China, or Ukraine, or Gaza, or Syria, I won't say no. But to them, maybe not Siberia either. Mother Russia, I think I'll avoid too for now, especially
Yeah, I
uh,
think that'd be a good idea.
good idea. And Hungary kind of makes me a little nervous too with Orban, and I shouldn't have to say that. I
Mhm,
should be able to walk
mhm,
in
mhm,
to that country with 20 books to sell, but
mhm,
selling books in Hungarian is a whole different animal. I mean,
mhm,
so I'm sticking in the United States, Canada, Australia, England. Eventually, the book is in South Africa in a few places, and the book is in New Zealand and Israel and other places. So it takes time, but India now. So, and that was a big hit because now I'm doing a big
crazy.
talk for this ISGAP.
Mhm,
I'll probably be more nervous about that than any of the ones I've done so far. And
mhm,
I've done 2 TV interviews live in Miami and live in Tampa Bay. And it's, I don't know if it's petrifying or you just kind of live in the moment. They made you at ease. They kind of told you what we were going to talk about.
mhm.
Dressed up. I had my PR person with me. But you get nervous after the interview. That's what it's weird. You know, you start to get nervous once the interview's done because then it hits you. So, but I'm happy to do any of it. I just
Mhm,
want to spread the word about anti-Semitism and hate,
mhm,
and it's really a good book. It's not just I'm not just trying to make it's not this Holocaust fatigue thing, or this is just another doctor trying to make more money, because I have to sell a lot of books to actually earn money on this book.
yeah.
And again, a lot of it's being donated. I believe in bonuses. If the book ever took off, all my people on my team would definitely get a little round of a paycheck, that kind of thing. I believe in that strongly. So, because I wouldn't be here if it weren't for such a great team. And that's,
Mhm,
oh, it's another lesson on the way out, is always be a team player. I know that's something you have
mhm,
to learn too. College, we kind of be, maybe even med school, got a little bit of narcissism, got a little bit of fear, and just experience is lacking. So team play is actually an experience that you got to
mhm,
either, if you're not a team player, I don't want you. So, uh,
mhm.
that's another thing. So no substitute for experience. Be a team player, change vectors. Don't be bored. Life is short. Enjoy it while you can.
Mhm. Excellent. Thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Wolf. I really appreciate it. What an incredible conversation, incredible story. And thank you again for everything that you are doing to
Thank you,
try
Cheryl. I
and
appreciate your time, and I'm glad you invited me. I'm most grateful. I see you've done hundreds of podcasts, and good for you. God bless. I hope you do a lot more like this one,
thank
and
you.
the other ones you're interested. I'm so excited to hear. Please invite me so I can listen to the one you have with Mr. Brink when that's coming up. Successful businessman out of Western Canada. I would love to see his place. Just the address alone sounds like it's unbelievable.
Right?
And we traded books too. It was wonderful. I sent him a copy of mine, and he sent me. He's written like 3 or 4 at least that he sent me. So
Hmm.
one of them I've already shared. It was about ADHD with
Hmm.
somebody, and the other ones they're in the honeydew list. But so are a
Hmm.
lot of other books too. Unfortunately, it's really hard to get caught
I
up. But
know as someone who's doing a podcast or, as a podcast host, I people send me books all the time. He sent me 3 of his books and I sent him both of mine. So we did a little book exchange like that too. And I actually just got 2 books in the mail on Saturday. So and it's
good
like,
for you.
"Oh,
So
it's a good
well,
thing
we
I'm a
need to take more.
fast reader."
We got to
Huh?
take more vacations so we can sit on the plane or sit at the hotel and read these books when we have time. But what I end up doing is working. So
Right.
I'm just doing the marketing and the social media. But yeah, I'm active on social media. I'm going to slow down over time. I really want to pursue more of these history professors and book talks and travel rather than, but it's still helping, especially LinkedIn. It's been really, really great. And I plan
Yes,
on staying with
LinkedIn's
this.
awesome.
That would be the last one I would give up, I think, as far as seriously trying to do business. And I would advise that to people that, especially older people, if you're not as savvy with Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever, LinkedIn is one to go. And if you're trying to get a good profile, I got people to help you with that too. If you want to get set
Mhm,
up or you want a little strategy there's a lot of people that just do that. And I've
mhm,
got a handful that I could share with people too if they were
mhm.
serious about doing that as well. So pleasure meeting you, and I appreciate the offer and having me on again, and great meeting you.
It was great meeting you too, and I would love to have you back anytime. And yeah, you just keep doing what you're doing. I really think that this
Appreciate that.
book is not only, taken off now, I think it's actually going to explode and just get to be incredibly popular. And if you ever are in Detroit again, let
Yep.
me know ahead of time because I have a sister who lives in Royal Oak
Okay.
and she is still a teacher. She's still teaching. She's older than I am. She's still teaching middle school, but she has done a lot of research on the Holocaust, and she, as far as historically speaking. So I would just
I'll be
send her.
there August 8th. I'm there and I'm free all day. So,
Woo!
and I'm looking to pick up a talk or two. If it's the 6th and 7th, I'll be in Grand Rapids, but on the 8th, we'll be in town. My travel partner's aunt is in the area, and I've got a lot of friends in the Detroit area. So that would be, if you can hook us up by phone or email or however, and she can do it, or I'll just meet her and give her a book and sign it, and
Mhm,
maybe she can invite me to do a Zoom, or if she
mhm,
if she's got the right age, we could do a talk for kids or
mhm,
adults or both.
mhm,
Or if she belongs to a church or synagogue or
mhm.
affiliate with a museum or
Well,
any of
she
it. I mean,
does.
I'm not, but
She
I'm just
teaches
saying,
in a
if I'm,
Catholic school, so yeah, there's a church.
it was well, perfect, but I need Christian friends as much as Jewish. I need Muslim
Mhm,
friends too. I mean, if we don't,
mhm,
and Detroit has a big Muslim population too, and
mhm,
it's noticeable. So, and I hope that's a good thing. Industrious, hardworking,
mhm,
family oriented. I'm all in on that.
mhm,
Contribute to society. But when we start talking about shooting people, and that's because people in Detroit, my mom and dad included, myself, another doctor, and my dad's father, a dentist, a doctor dentist. We contributed to society, as are you. We're most
mhm,
of us, 99% of us, are doing just that, and
mhm,
we want to keep it that way if we can. So I would love to meet her in Detroit. Please have her reach out if she wants, and whether it's short or a talk. I mean, either talks, it's an hour, 2 hour and a half with the signings. It
mhm.
doesn't have to be a long time. I appreciate you suggesting that. And if I'm in Colorado, because I have friends in Colorado, and I do a talk or whatever, you got to come. I mean,
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Denver, Aurora,
I would
yeah.
be, disappointed if I were not invited. So,
One is a good friend of my parents from Michigan, from Saginaw, and she's in Colorado now. She's a grandmother, she's a mother. Her husband passed. They were good friends of my parents for many years. Another Jewish lady, Barb, and she's been a Holocaust educator too for a long time. So,
wow.
and she's in her 80s now, so she's not doing it as much. But it's hard for her to get around, I guess. But I hope to see her someday again. And I've got a high school friend who's in the Denver area, and this Dr. Berza, who's sponsoring this ISGAP talk coming up. She's got a Colorado connection, I
Mhm.
don't know if she travels back and forth. I never really asked her, but it's part of her long dossier besides New Delhi. So she's a history professor, something
Mhm.
so I don't know if she does virtual or she visits the US for semesters at a time. I don't know, but it's nice to have people around the country so that if
Right.
I'm going to place point A or point B, that people know you. And
Well, just a little bit of advice, if you come to Colorado, don't come in March
okay,
because March is our snowiest month, and
okay,
actually we just had a huge snowstorm just a couple of days ago. We got probably only about a foot here in Denver, where I'm at. But
yeah.
the mountains got slammed, which we really like that for the skiing and then for the moisture and stuff. But so it's a very snowy month.
Well, I wouldn't. I'd consider the summer. I think that I've been to Denver once. It was so beautiful. I was there for an ophthalmology interview. I
Mm,
assume we're off the air now, right? I mean, you're going to edit this out, I assume, about your
I
sister.
can
And
I can edit this out.
I mean, you can leave it. I don't care. I'm a spontaneous guy. I mean, I talk like you're in my living room here, when we got
Mhm.
the TV on. But I'm just kidding. But no, I love being able to reach out to people. And my friend in Denver, he's a avid golfer. We were on the golf team together in high school, and he's always asking me to go out and play golf. And or he wants to meet me at the University of Michigan football game. He's got the extra. I
Mhm.
always turn him down because I've got stuff going on, including this. So this takes priority, of course. But
Mhm.
I would make that a nice purposeful visit,
Mhm.
seeing you and him and Barb, and there's got to be a handful of other people there that I know. So
Mhm.
California's untapped market for me. New York are largely untapped, except for a few podcasts, hopefully more. But our publisher's sponsoring this just came up. New Jersey, I might get a Long Island talk because we've got this
Mhm.
meeting. Our other authors that Amsterdam Publishers, who's great publishing house, and this is all she
Mhm.
does, out of Netherlands, of course. And she's having a soiree for New York, sorry, for Amsterdam Publishers authors in New York. So I'll be there for a few days in September, and I'll have an extra day there too. So I reached out to somebody coincidentally, and she knows people at the Long Island Holocaust Museum
Mhm.
and Education Center. So I might end up getting a talk there, which would really be sweet.
Mhm.
New York Jewish Heritage Museum on the wait list. Obviously, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of books that people want to share,
Mhm.
and it's competitive, and it's a good thing. I mean, I'm glad it's crowded.
Mhm.
For me, if I ran these institutions, I'd say, well, we've got such a demand. Let's see if we can double down. It's hard to book programs, but if you hired an
Right.
extra person, it's hard to do all the
Yeah.
programming, the marketing, getting people in and out, buying the books. I understand that,
Well,
but
being competitive, I mean, it's a champagne problem. It's a good thing because probably like 15 years ago, nobody was talking about this. 10 years ago, nobody was talking about this. It just seems like now people are starting to wake up and go back and revisit our history.
absolutely. I mean, and you couldn't say it better myself. And she's still churning out 2 or 3 books a month, Holocaust and are related, and doing it with very little staff. So it's very
Yeah.
impressive how much work. Now, I don't know, maybe she gets super saturated if she keeps continuing. I think she's been in business like 10 years now. So I'm lucky I didn't catch her at the very beginning of what she
Mm-mm.
was doing, because
Right.
she herself admits that she's improved over time. And another author, when I kind of queried about her,
Mhm.
said she had her about 5, 6 years ago, and she had this issue and this issue, but it's been a very professional relationship
Yeah.
and very satisfactory. So they're putting out all these books, and everybody wants to do signings at the Holocaust Museum, and
Of
everybody
course.
wants to do this book talk and this. And the reality is, you've got to have thick skin. You've got to accept the good with the bad. Not
Mhm.
everybody's going to
Mhm.
have the room for you, and that's something. So the Illinois Holocaust Museum was the gold standard. I mean, they gave me a stipend and an honorarium. They reimbursed me for my travel. And I was there with JD. I don't know if you know JD Gershbein. He's the one who's
Mm-mm.
got me rolling with LinkedIn big time. Well, he's in Illinois, and he did the fireside chat with me. So he introduced me. I did my talk. We did a fireside chat, a couple of questions and answers, open up to the audience, and then the book signing. We closed the place, and it was a fantastic experience. And then you think, well, they're all going to be like this, but it's
No.
not true. It's so
No.
hard. I mean,
Yeah.
this one's smaller. This one doesn't have any money. This
Yeah.
one they ghost you. This one,
Yeah.
oh, they renege. That's the worst. Don't ghost me. If you want to say no, and don't renege. If you're going to say, if
Mhm.
you're all enthusiastic, say, oh, we're going to get you in, then please follow through, because
Yeah.
that's hurtful in a way. And
Mhm.
in the end, in the back of your head, what really hurts the most is you say, look, if the Holocaust museums don't care about me fighting anti-Semitism, then who
Mhm.
is? Why
Right.
would the third party care? Why would I care as an author if I can't even get a Holocaust museum and I hate to say that, and it's a much to say, but your feelings that goes in the back of your head if they don't care
Right.
about.
Well, there's that self-doubt is always,
It's
is
part of it. Imposter
yeah.
syndrome,
Yeah, you
self-doubt,
got it. Yep.
yeah,
Yep,
all
yep,
of
yep.
that. So Off the thing, my first job ever was a volunteer job. We used to clean out the hot tubs in physical therapy at my dad's hospital. So
Oh,
that's what my
jeez.
very first 10th grade, maybe 11th grade in the
Uh-huh.
summer. So we'd go in every, 2 days, 3 days a week, and learned all about the tubs and the people coming in and physical therapy. It wasn't a hard job. It was very sociable. My best friend Rob, and he's a surgeon too. He's in
Mhm,
Kalamazoo, Michigan, and
mhm.
that was our first job. It was we volunteered in the physical therapy department.
That's hilarious. Oh my
And then we
God.
worked our way up to janitor and then nurse's assistant, volunteer nurses, nursing, in the ER, and then nurse's assistant. Finally got into med school. And then I've had 27 jobs, maybe 28 jobs in my lifetime, if you include moonlighting and
Hmm.
mentoring, tutoring,
Hmm.
whatever kind of. My mom's affairs is a job. This is a job.
Hmm.
Writing a book is actually more than one job. It's like three
Oh,
jobs. So,
yeah,
so
pretty
and I've been bounced
overwhelming.
around a few times. And like I said, I want to be an ophthalmologist, but I didn't get in. So radiology worked out. I would have been a neuro ophthalmologist and a
Hmm.
neuroradiologist, just as good. It's maybe better. If
Hmm.
I had to turn back things, just if the experience, the knowledge you have from your experience, if you could take that at 60 and move it back to when you're 35, that's something I could say I kind of regret. But it's not possible, and
Hmm.
you just got to go with the self-improve,
Yep.
So and I'd love to do another one with you too. And just let me know, reach out in a few months if you want. And
Okay.
maybe there'll be more good news. If I don't have anything to add, then we won't. But I probably have something to add. Hopefully we get more nice talks and signings. And good luck with your books too. You have at least two, which I'm impressed.
I do. Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, the first one is a book about fitness over 50. That one went out in 2016. The Reluctant Ninja is my story about, it chronicles my journey into the crazy world of men and martial arts and starting my martial arts training at the tender young age of 47. And I did not go willingly. It's a really long story.
Sounds fun
Uh,
though. Sounds fun.
it's a heck of a story. So the title is The Reluctant Ninja: How a Middle-Aged Princess Became a Warrior Queen. And like I said, started training at the tender young age of 47. Um, my sensei was my acupuncturist long before he became my sensei. And the
Sounds like a
first time I
dangerous combination, an acupuncturist and a martial arts expert.
Well, here's the great part of the story is, first time I met him, I'm a dancer. And first time he started putting needles in my legs, he got a very far away look on his face. And he said, with your legs and my coaching, I could teach you how to kill with these things. And I'm going, oh my God, who thinks like that, let alone says it out loud to a perfect stranger? And it was like, no, thank you. There's no way that's going to happen. But thanks for thinking of me. I'll save my killer legs for ballet class. Took him 3 years. And he
Wow.
finally convinced me. And basically, I was going through PTSD at the time, but I was
Sorry to
kind of
hear that.
trying to hide it, because of course everybody says, nah, that can't happen. You're making it up, all that crap. So when he found out about what had happened to me, his campaign went into high gear. Again, it took him 3 years to convince me. And finally I said, okay, Mark, I'll take a few classes from you just to prove to you how much I'm going to hate it. And then I'll quit. And 10 years later, I became his first female black belt.
Wow, congratulations. That's a book. That's a great book.
It's,
Congratulations.
it's a heck of a story. I mean,
I'll
talk about a
trade
roller
books. If
coaster.
you haven't already purchased a book, I can trade books with you if you want to do that. I mean, if you
Ooh,
already
I would
purchased the
love to
book,
do that. Do you want
yeah,
a copy of both of them or the Ninja one?
whatever you want. I mean, I think the Ninja one would probably interest me more. What was the other one about fitness after 50, you said?
Yeah, it's called Forever Fit and Flexible, Feeling Fabulous at 50 and Beyond. So it kind of busts the myths of aging, as far as what we're told to. I'm 67 and I
God
was told,
bless. Wow. I wouldn't have guessed 45, 47. So, but you told
well,
me when you
well,
graduated, well, you told me when you graduated high school or college, so you kind of gave it away, but because I knew you were a few years older than me, but you look great. I mean, keep it up,
oh, thank you. Thank you. Mindset really makes a huge difference. I'm telling you. So
I
basically,
agree. Yeah, if you want to
when,
send, I
I'll
have
send,
somebody in mind I could that might be interested in reading the book.
okay,
She got a little ADHD going on, but she's trying to get back into shape, and that would be. But I hate to get two for one, especially doing this
don't
podcast.
worry
So I'm
about
sure.
that.
Okay.
Okay.
Email when we get off. Just let's exchange. Just if you could email me or send it on the Podmatch note because you want to mark this as completed too, right? I suppose
Right,
the
right.
interview. Just
Or
you can send me
I
your.
might just go ahead and message you on LinkedIn because Podmatch gets kind of weird sometimes.
Okay, you can do
Once it's
LinkedIn.
over,
Yep. Or
it's like,
email. LinkedIn
yeah.
or email, just your home street address, and I'll do the
Okay.
same.
Okay.
And I'll send you a copy.
Okay.
And what else was I going to say? I guess there's so much to talk about that comes up like after the fact. So not only you wrote the book, but now your podcast title. is kind of related to the title of your book, which is really cool. It's a nice little, it's a nice
Mm-hmm.
little connection. And I wanted to compliment you on, you've got one of the prettiest podcast emblems out of the
Thank
ones I've
you.
seen so far. It's really well thought out. I don't know if you did it yourself or you got professional help, but
Oh God, no. I always get professional help with stuff like that. The same woman who designed both book covers, which I never ever intended to be on the cover of the books. It just kind of happened like that organically. Actually, the first one, she says, "This is the picture we're using." And I'm going, "No," because I'm half naked. And she's like, "No, we're going to use this one." I'm like, "Oh." So then I got over it. But yeah, she's the same one who did the book covers. She did the little logo for me.
nice. And
Yeah.
hopefully at a reasonable price too, you know? And
Yes.
I see you've won awards too. You won like an award on one and two on the other. Congratulations on that. Mazel tov. Good for you.
Thank you.
One of
Mazel
them is
tov.
that looks familiar. The top one on the second on the Ninja. Is that the
That's readers, I think that's readers' favorite
oh, okay, because I've got that too, but the
because
reader's
you've got
favorite
that
is
one
the
too.
white
I've got a,
silver, but the
yep.
one on this yellow one here I'm looking at, is that the NIEA or no?
No, I think I got book excellence and readers' favorite on the Ninja book.
Oh, okay, so I got the I should Nautilus and the reader's favorite, the NIEA, and then the
Yeah,
living now. Usually when they ask me, I've got my it's up here on the screen, so I don't have to
yeah,
memorize it, but
yeah.
just I'm still trying to learn the ISGAM. And when I
I
do the
know.
talk, I'm going to say thank you to the ISGAM instead of trying to remember. Because if I don't remember the right words, it'll be really embarrassing. It's at the beginning of a talk like that. So
Yeah, right.
just like blowing my nose when I'm trying to announce where you can buy the book. I didn't, that was not intentional, but
That's
uh,
okay. And
welcome
I'm
to,
going to, okay, we're going to sign off. So I'm going to, when I sign off, I'm just going to say once again, to the listeners, because I'm going to edit out. I did leave the recording on because I thought we were signing off. So I will cut out this conversation
yeah.
that we've been having. But I need to sign off. So stay on, even though
Okay.
I'll stop recording. Okay.
Yep. I'll stay on. And
Okay. I'm just going to say one more time. Thanks again, Dr. Wolf. I've really enjoyed having you on the show. And everybody, thank you so much for listening. What an incredible story. Make sure that you share this episode with everybody you know. Such an important message and so many pearls of wisdom in the episode. And make sure you get Dr. Wolf's book. Go follow him and connect with him on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, if you would like to have him come and speak at your group, your school, your synagogue, whatever, your book club, do contact him. Obviously, he is a really nice guy and he likes to talk. He'll talk to anybody. And make sure that you just stay safe, be kind to yourself, be kind to other people because we all have an important story. We have our history. And if we share our stories, I firmly believe we are going to make the world a better place. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.